the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Allison Nissen. Today, I am lucky enough to have with me Ian Dawson. Ian, why don't you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Hi, my name is Ian Dawson. I am an author. I've written 2 books so far. One is called The Field, and the other one is called Midnight House. They're both in the same series. I'm also a screenwriter and a playwright. I have a bachelor's degree in theater from UC Davis and a master's in screenwriting from Cal State Northridge.
Wow, it sounds like you like to write a lot of different things.
Yes, I like variety.
So do you like writing novels more than writing plays?
I like them all. I think there's challenges to each medium. You have a lot more free room to play with a novel versus a screenplay or a play. So you have a lot more stuff to do. But I like them all. I started out writing plays and puppet shows when I was a kid. And then that sort of expanded into writing scripts and then writing plays. And then I had 2 plays produced when I lived in Sacramento. And then I've been mainly writing screenplays on the side just for fun, but I've been working on my novels. And then I've also been writing industrial videos for American Eagle and Ralph's Grocery Company as well.
How extremely fun.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the novels that you have.
So The Field is inspired by a real life event that happened to me in the summer of 1993. I was playing hide and seek with a friend of mine in the field behind our neighborhood in Redding, California. And I was chased down by 2 older boys and abducted and taken into a clearing and terrorized for a few hours till they let me go. And that basic premise sort of became the springboard for what became The Field. I had written a short story, first person, about what actually had happened about 10 years after it had happened in 2003. And then I started thinking, this is a good beginning of a story. So I started developing it and working on it. And it took about 15 years working on it off and on for it to become The Field, which is what it eventually became when it was published. It was originally called Taken, and then a Liam Neeson movie series came out, and that sort of took that off the table. So then I had to change it to The Field, so there wouldn't be any confusion. And I gave it to a friend of mine. Her mom was an editor, and I told her about the story, and she wanted to read it, and she really liked it. She gave me notes and ideas, and so I sort of expanded on it from there. And then after the 3rd or 4th time she read through it, she was like, this could be a series. I think this could be a series. I said, okay. So I was thinking it was going to be a one-off book. And then I had to sort of go, okay, where could I go from there? So then I started brainstorming ideas for what the next book could be. And I came up with the storyline for Midnight House, which is the second book, which takes place 2 years after the events of The Field. And so it sort of explores the aftermath of what happened to the main character, Daniel, in the first book, and his best friend, Kyle, who was also along for this, crazy adventure in the first book. And it focuses on their friendship and how they've moved now from middle school to high school. And so it deals with themes involving high school relationships and stuff like that. So they're both action adventure novels. And there's a lot of stuff that involves friendship, but also in the first book, we're dealing with child abduction. And the second book, we're dealing with sports hazing and recovering from childhood trauma. But there's also humor in the books. So they're not hardcore, serious books, because kids aren't, this is really serious 24/7. So there's, fun to be had as well.
Are these YA books?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're young adult novels.
And was this cathartic for you after that experience to write the novel? And I guess you could adjust the levels of challenges that you faced in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was because they were never caught in real life. They're still out there. So it was sort of a way to go, well, how can I give this an ending and these two, the ending they rightfully deserve? So it was sort of like that. Obviously I took the general, premise of my abduction and expanded on it and made it a lot more action packed and action oriented than what actually happened. And I have had people who have read it, I can't believe this happened to you. And it's like, well, that didn't actually happen. And they get mad, like, what? That didn't happen? Like, no, it's fiction. That's why it's fiction. It's not a nonfiction retelling. It's a fictional version. So that's been fun to see people's reaction to the story. But yeah, they are both young adult novels. And then the third book in the series, I'm hoping to get out next year. So that'll finish off this trilogy with these characters and this whole situation.
Thinking about your script writing, are you able to really capitalize on that dialogue?
Yeah, I love writing dialogue. I always have, stuff going on in my head and conversations. I don't talk to myself. Well, I do, but that's, we all writers do to some extent, because you live in your own little world in your head. You're like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Oh, how about that? Okay. What if he says this and she says, okay, and then we can go here. So you have those things going on, but I love writing dialogue. And if you have to make it sound natural, but it has to have a purpose, which is always important with the story, because you got to move the story forward. So you got to share elements of the story while keeping within the spirit of the characters and the situation. So yeah, I love writing dialogue. That's always fun. That and action sequences. So especially with The Field and with Midnight House, it was fun to figure out ways to, organically have these action sequences happen without it just seeming like, oh, and here's this. Because we've all seen movies where all of a sudden here comes an action sequence. It's like, why? Why is this happening? So yeah, I like writing both.
Do you hope to turn these into screenplays?
I would love to see this series adapted into a film or television series. That's definitely something that I've thought of. One of my coworkers, she said, well, why don't you just adapt it yourself? It's like, that makes sense, So probably after I get the third one done, I'll probably look into adapting it myself and see what happens. I do want to shop these books to producers or agents and see what I can do with them in the future.
And how long did it take you to write the first one? You said about 10 years? Is that?
It was about 15. The first few drafts were awful. I was focused on the wrong characters. So the first one, it was Daniel's dad and this cop close to retirement who were searching for him. And even my mom was like, yeah, this doesn't really work. I said, okay. So then I started thinking, and I was like, well, if, Daniel and Kyle, the two main friends, it should be their story. So then I focused on them. So I scrapped about 95% of the manuscript that I had, and I just started over. And I just basically retooled the entire thing and just made it about them and their friendship. And then, so I had their friendship, which was more of an unconditional friendship. And then I focused on the villains, who were James and Austin, and their relationship, which is more of a toxic friendship. So we had this sort of dichotomy between the unconditional friendship where Kyle and Daniel will do anything for each other. And then these other two, Austin and James, who are just basically, horrible to each other, especially Austin, because he's the main villain in the book. And so that was the main thing. But yeah, it took a while because it was my first novel. I had written short stories, but I'd never written a full novel. So to expand out, and you got to make sure everything works and the pacing and all that. And so that was fun. And then the point of view stuff, because in third person limited, so we go into different characters' heads throughout the book. And so with Midnight House, it was an expansion on that. And I got really ambitious and added more characters and expanded out the world, because the first book basically takes place in the field over the course of one night. And then Midnight House takes place during like a week and a half of school and all the stuff that happens to them during that week. So it was a much more ambitious project and a challenge, but I was happy with how it turned out.
And that one took you how long?
It took about 5 years, because I was outlining and plotting that one while I was finishing up the field. And so that one initially came up. I was originally just going to go, okay, it's going to be a standalone with these characters, but we're not going to work with anything that happened in the first book. And I was like, well, that doesn't work, because it's not like, this isn't a sitcom where the characters reset back to how they were before the show started. It's like, no, Daniel will still be dealing with the issues that happened from the trauma he faced from the abduction. So I wanted to put that in there. And that really helped create an emotional and psychological component to the second book that I feel made it a lot stronger as a story.
Your third one, in theory, should take you about a year and a half.
Yeah, well, the third one, I've been toying with ideas too for a while. So, and that's the thing, I think, with the more you write, the faster your process gets. Because the first one, it was basically, I'd write some and then put it away. And then it'd be a few years and I'd write some and then put it away. And then the second book, the pandemic really helped me with the second book, because I was home, working at home most of the time. So I usually work in the evenings and then I get home late. So this was, I started work in the mornings, and then after work, I just jumped right into the book. And so I was able to do rewrites and edits and get everything done and get it to my beta reader and my editor, and then get it back faster, because they weren't really doing anything either. So I was able to get it done a lot faster. So with book 3, I've already basically outlined what I want to do and where it's going to go. And so I just have to, write it, which is my next task with that. So I'm hoping to get it done by next year, late next year. I'm hoping to have it, out and done, because now I know the characters and I know who they are and how they will respond to certain situations. And that makes it a lot easier, especially after the second book. Because the second book, I really dug in deep and in depth to who the characters were. So doing the third one, not like it's easier, like, oh yeah, I can write it overnight, but it's definitely a less of a headache to get it done. So, well, I'm excited about it, and I'm excited with the direction it's going and how the ending of the trilogy will be.
Writing strong characters is not always easy, but it sounds like you're getting to know these characters well. What advice do you have for people to write characters?
I always look at people that I know as sort of don't steal somebody's whole life and personality and put it into a character. But that is a good way, because you want your characters to be human. You don't want them to be just cookie cutter, one-dimensional characters that are just going through your story. Because I believe, all people have flaws and they have doubts and they have fears. And those are all things that are important for a character to have. Because you want your characters to have the confidence and the, active mindset to pursue the goal that's in the story. But at the same time, they have to have doubts, and they have to be able to be dimensionalized. Because if you don't create a character that has dimension and depth, then it's not really that interesting. Because especially in my case with the young adult characters, they're just regular kids. And that's what I wanted to do. Where the regular kids are sort of thrown into these extraordinary circumstances. And so you want to take and, create characters that feel like you could see them at the mall or you could see them at the Apple store, and they're just, kids doing what kids normally do or thrown in this situation. So I always feel that when you're creating characters, that you want to give them a whole host of issues and problems to deal with, so that you can see, and they don't always have to show up in the story, because you need to know as a writer how how is Daniel going to deal with a situation where he's got a test and he didn't study. Okay, how is he going to deal with that? Well, his girlfriend's mad at him, and his best friend wants him to hang out that weekend, but his parents don't want him to, because he's got to stay home and study because he's grounded because he didn't study for the test. That's a lot of stuff going on. But if you, as a writer, can sit there and go, okay, as Daniel, how would I react? How would he react to these things? And you can sort of process that. That gives him more of a dimension, because now he's dealing with multiple things. That's what I do with my characters. Is I take them and I like to give them a lot of stuff to deal with, because that's what we do as people, because it's a lot of layers. And so that's what I do, and that's what I suggest.
Was it challenging taking a character that's based off yourself and then putting them into a current, it doesn't even matter if the book is based from 20 years ago or today, but as the audience reads it, it needs to be relevant to today's audience. So is it challenging taking it from that little time hop in your head?
Well, they're contemporary, so they don't take place in the 90s. They take place more now. I try to make it more timeless. So, I mean, they are talking and referring to things that are already here, like in this era. But no, Daniel is sort of I would say, I think most writers who put themselves in their work say he's a better version of myself. That's what I would say. Just like Kyle is like your idealized best friend, and then Daniel's girlfriend in Midnight House is sort of your idealized girlfriend, but they still have problems and issues and complexities that make them interesting. And you have to do that, where, especially when you're fictionalizing something that happened to you, it can't be, well, I wouldn't do that. It's like, no, but would Daniel do that? It's like, it's Daniel's story. And that's where it's like I said, when the basic premise of the first book is my abduction in real life, but then I took that and expanded upon it and made Daniel and his adventure and Kyle trying to find him. I made that the heart of the story and their friendship. So, and that was fun to create these two characters that are somewhat different, but they have similarities in what they like and what they enjoy, and that they're there for each other no matter what. So yeah, I think everybody, I feel like we all put a piece of ourselves in all the characters that we have created in our stories, because that's how we relate to them. There has to be that initial seed of reality and realism. So they're not just cookie cutter, characters where it's just like, oh yeah, he's like James Bond. Okay, well, you're not James Bond. And he's already a fictional character that exists. So don't rip off those characters. Create your own.
Does the real life Kyle, did he like his portrayal in your novel?
Well, the real life Kyle is based on a lot of different people that I know. And I know the real life Kyle, he read the first book and really enjoyed it. And it basically, he remembered that day. So, but he was happy with the book.
Ian Dawson, thank you so much for coming. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, thank you for having me. I have an official website for the books. It's www.believable, thefieldya.com. YA is for young adult. You can also reach me on Instagram and Twitter at thefieldya. And then I also have an email address, thefieldya@gmail.com. And I write, I try to do a blog about writing or aspects of writing every single week on Sundays. I usually put that out. I just started a new series about story structure on Sunday.
Wow, I'll have to check that one out. That sounds really interesting. Now, are you ready to move to our rapid fire questions?
I am. Let's do it.
Describe your ideal summer day.
Ooh. I would say get up early. I like to go to the mountains. I'm a mountain person. I know I live in LA where the beaches are, but I prefer the mountains and go hiking, have lunch up there, probably come home and do some writing, hang out, watch movies, and go to bed.
Is there any food that you refuse to eat?
I'm allergic to chocolate, so I can't have chocolate. So that would be anything with chocolate.
What a shame.
I know. Yeah.
And what was the last purchase you made for $100 or less that brought you a lot of joy?
Ooh, I bought over the pandemic, I bought a turntable and I bought a bunch of vinyl. So that would be it. I did a big investment. That would be probably the biggest purchase I made that was made me very excited. Because I had a record player in the past, but then over the pandemic, I was like, gee, I kind of want to have records, without ads and all that stuff. And so I bought a record player and bought a bunch of albums with Sinatra and Elvis, and it's been great.
Sounds like quite a collection.
Yes.
All right. Well, Ian, once again, thank you for stopping by.
And thank you for having me. This has been very nice. It's nice to talk to you.
You all have been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Allison Nissen. Allison out. Woo! We're all done.
Yay!
Ian Dawson is an author, playwright, and screenwriter based in Los Angeles. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Dramatic Art from the University of California, Davis, and a Master's in Screenwriting from Cal State Northridge. His first novel, The Field, was released in 2018 and went on to become a Reader's Favorite Book Award finalist. The Field is based on Ian's own experience of being abducted and held captive when he was only 13 years old. For more information about Ian, visit him at thefieldya.com. Learn, network, and grow at the 20th Annual Florida Writers Conference, October 14th through 17th, 2021. The Florida Writers Youth Conference is October 16th of 2021. For more information, visit floridawriters.org. See you there.